Welcome to All Things Pilates, Season 4. Though we can't know exactly what Joseph Pilates was thinking or feeling towards the end of his life, we do know he wanted the entire world to practice Contrology, and that want has certainly become a reality. Hello everyone, I'm Darian Gold, and here on All Things Pilates, we discuss the man, the method, and how his genius continues to influence and inspire. By now, many of you have watched the various archival footage online showing Joe Pilates and a handful of his students practicing his method. There is one very notable film clip of a young Anna Shaffer demonstrating ballet movements using an invention Joe had developed called the Headdress. Anna was in New York City studying ballet at the School of American Ballet and was told she had a weak back. So Anna called her ballet mentor, Dorothy Alexander, the director of the Atlanta Ballet Company, for advice. And Dorothy told Anna to go see Joe Pilates. It was 1950, and when Anna stepped over the Contrology studio threshold, Joe took one look at her and knowingly said, "I will change your life forever." I'm thrilled to introduce you to Anna Shaffer. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Hello, Darian. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here today. There's much for us to discuss. First off, where did you grow up, and when did you know that you wanted to become a ballet dancer?
I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and I started ballet when I was 3, and I think from that day forth, I always knew that I wanted to be a ballet dancer.
Wow, that is pretty young to know your future and your life path.
Well, it was exciting. I started ballet because I was the younger sister of Barbara, and she was pigeon-toed in those days. Pigeon-toed children went to take ballet, and she hated it, and I loved it. And that's why I started so young. And the story goes that she begged me to stop ballet because if she could stop, if I stopped, then she wouldn't be able to stop. And I said, "No, Barbara, I'll give up anything in the world for you except for ballet."
And then what happened to Barbara? Did she quit anyway?
Yeah, well, I think she got to the point, being 5 years older than I, and yes, and I think probably peace in the family may have occurred when she was allowed to stop. But I continued it, and I loved it, and I always knew that I was going to be a dancer.
And you danced for how long?
Well, I actually started professionally when I was 3 and 5, I did movies, and I toured with the Metropolitan Opera Company as a child in Butterfly. And but I guess my professional dancing started with Dorothy Alexander in the Atlanta Ballet when I was 14. And I danced even after I was married. My husband was a ballet dancer, but it turned out by avocation because he had ripped all the ligaments and tendons in one leg that never really healed. But we did dance for 2 years together doing concert work. And then I continued for a couple of years more. So I guess I hung up my toe shoes when I was about 35. My daughter was born when I was just before I was 30. But I continued, of course, teaching and choreographing. And I I was the founding director of the Atlanta Ballet. I'm sorry, not the Atlanta Ballet, the Baltimore Ballet Theater, because I had moved back to Baltimore upon marrying. And I also started the Hartford Concert Ballet Company as well. Performing, I still performed in musical theaters and choreographed a lot in Baltimore and throughout Maryland. But actually in ballet, no, if you're not there for the classes every day, then yeah. So you know the story.
Oh, yes. It's a little bit like practicing advanced Pilates, because if you're not practicing at that level every day, it's very difficult to hold on to that strength.
It is. I know my father, of course, enjoyed the arts as well as my mother. And when I told my father that I was going to be a ballet dancer, and he said, well, I'd rather see you be a doctor or a lawyer, because you can be a doctor or a lawyer when you're 90, which I almost am, but not ballet. But yet I continued. I enjoyed teaching. I still enjoy teaching. And it's a way of life that I know nothing else and want nothing else.
Yes. So you've remained busy. Your elementary school years, you were obviously in school, but your mind was in the ballet stars.
Yes. I mean, after school, where all the girls got together and, did their things, I went to the studio. Yeah, the studio was my after school activity. And I couldn't care about what they were doing. That was, it was too childish in my mind.
You're an old soul right away. When you went to New York City, and actually, how did that come about?
Well, I took the summer class, the 6-week summer program at the School of American Ballet. And there were a couple of gals in the company that had done it the previous year. And I just made up my mind that I was going to go the following year, which I did. It was wonderful because though we had good training in Atlanta, the exposure to New York, I had never been introduced to character dancing, and various teachers. The School of American Ballet had, all Russian teachers. And it was an experience just to get me more advanced, but also introducing me to other techniques, other ways of teaching. Balanchine would often come into classes to watch the students. And one day after class, he said to me that he liked the way I dance to come back when I grew up. Well, he meant in height.
Oh.
I was 5 feet, and he would not take anyone in the company until they were 5'4" and above. So Joe Pilates did put 1 inch on me. There's no doubt about that.
I love it. But when one of your ballet teachers mentioned to you that you had a weak back, did you understand what that meant?
Not really. I knew I was sway back, but I didn't understand the ramifications of that and actually Joe never really explained it to me either. He could look at me and see what was wrong. And it was just his training and the various different apparatuses and what have you, that, as he said, I'll change your life forever. And he did. And after about 6 weeks, my body was different, was completely changed. And I would go, he would not let me go consecutive days. He said the body has to rest. He would take me every other day. And it was expensive. And I've known a few dancers that could afford to do anything they wanted, but most dancers that I knew, we never had any money. So my extracurricular activities in that sense all went to Joe too.
Where were you living?
At that summer, I lived at the Claire de Hirsch, which was a girls' theater club on 3rd Avenue. And yes, that's where that 6 weeks was spent.
And you got on the train, or did you walk?
I did both. And yes, basically I walked. It was a long way. And there were 2 other gals from the Atlanta Ballet that went that year too. We all 3 stayed different places. Virginia Rich was one, and she stayed with her sister Sally. And then Pat Rice was another gal. And so we had things in common, definitely, beside ballet, knowing each other from Atlanta, and that helped a lot.
The first time you walk into the studio, though, and Joe is there, and he said those words to you, "I will change your life forever." What was going on in your mind at that moment? Because this was all new for you. All his equipment must have seemed a bit foreign.
It was. Well, Dorothy had a reformer, but it was in her apartment upstairs from the studio, and she had a bed with, it was an actual bed, but it had the Cadillac springs.
Oh, bednasium. She had the bednasium.
Yes. Yeah. And so it was not totally foreign at all, but yes, it was. I was totally underexposed, and I suppose it's hard to actually remember the first time. I can tell you about the maybe 20th times, what have you, but it was something that I was looking forward to. He never explained anything. He just did. He did it or told me what to do and what have you. But my back was straightened. I no longer had a curved back. I thank God for him every day of my life. And his studio was quite large. It was filled with equipment, but nicely spaced. And there were other things. He had either 4 or 5 reformers. I can't remember exactly now. And then, of course, the Cadillac, which took up a lot of space. And in stages, in development stages, I would move from one to the other. I wasn't on the Cadillac for a long time, a very long time. And I never took a mat class from him. He didn't teach mat classes. And he had Jacob Spiller, yes. But there was a mat in the studio. It was very thick and covered in leather with handles on the ends of it. But I guess it was well over a year or more when he even put me on the mat. And basically that was, he himself stretching me, the knees and the back and the pushing, and then the extensions and what have you. I always felt it was harder than the reformer. and I'll do the same thing with my students, I'll get and work their backs and what have you. But so it was a process. It was a process of time, understanding, always on a one-to-one basis. If Joe was busy, Clara would, see that I had finished whatever I was doing previously and go and set me up for something else. But that, was about the extent of that. And it was all of the years I studied. Of course, when I married in 1955 and moved to Baltimore, then my husband and I would go to New York once a month for about 4 days. And Ken always went to the ballet art school. And my first stop was Joe Pilates and then ballet theater school. I had changed. When I moved to New York permanently, I thought, I'm not getting into New York City ballet. I'm still only 5 feet tall. And so I went to the school. I had a scholarship to the School of American Ballet. And so I went there. At that time, or ballet theater, ballet theater. Now it's called American Ballet Theater, but at the time when I was there, it was just ballet theater. I, did all my training there, with going some other places when I'd hear of a teacher. And this time jazz was starting to become very popular. And so I'd take classes with Peter Gennaro. He was teaching at the time. And I loved character dance. And I studied with Boris Romanoff, who was the classical character teacher, and then Ural Lazalski, who was the fire and vim and vigor. And I worked in Lazalski's company for a while as well. Yes, but I always went to Joe, regardless of how many years after Joe died. And I would go to Joe until he died. And then, of course, Clara took over. And even when I go to California, I seek out the best Pilates teachers. And Washington, D.C., the Catholic University there had one of the best Pilates studios I've ever seen in my life and training. I mean, really phenomenal. And, wherever, I'd always seek the Pilates teachers and found some pretty bad ones, but basically good ones.
Anna, I'm fascinated about Joe's approach to his work. He started a student, let's say you, on the reformer.
Yes.
And he kept you on the reformer until he knew that you understood how the body needed to work as a unit before he even would bring you to the mat, or then subsequently to the caddy or the pedipole or...
Yes.
So he spent a lot of time with you on the reformer.
Yes, it was always a one-to-one basis. He may have 2 or 3 other people in the studio at the same time, but never more than 4 or 5. I think 5 at the most. Yes, and but it was always on a one-to-one basis, and he would oversee, and his 5 more times, and you're thinking, I'll kill him.
Did you do the same exercises each lesson?
And progressing to more advanced exercises. But yes, it's the same thing today. I mean, you do the same thing. And when, a lot of people get bored with the same thing, but it's a maintenance. And that's exactly what it is. It's maintenance. I tell them that you drive a car the same way, it functions the same way. And if you don't put the oil in the car, then the car's not going to run. And you put the oil in the car the same way. And so, I guess of course, Joe trained so many dancers. Balanchine sent all of his dancers to Joe. And the combination, and my classes, my mat classes, are a combination of the ballet with Pilates because they're intertwined completely. The understanding, I mean, there's a lot of ballet dancers I see that don't have good backs. And so their careers are ended very quickly. I went to a production of Balanchine's Jewels via the Bolshoi Ballet last weekend. And it was in the movie house. But my eye was generated to feet, and I saw so many feet that already had huge bunions and what have you. But then I saw some that I guess dancers were still young and they didn't. So it's just, you've got to maintain the alignment. And that was what Joe was all about. It was the alignment of the body.
So he wasn't intimidated or upset when dancers would come in and bring in their training and their philosophy about movement?
To my knowledge, no, because the dancer has a better movement when the body is aligned correctly. And I never, no. A lot of dancers wouldn't go to him. My husband wouldn't go to him. But many, many dancers wouldn't go.
What? He wouldn't go after he got injured?
Not at all. And it's the same, a lot of people get a preconception about things. And that preconception, unless it is definitely shown differently, they'll keep that conception. And, like some people think that one teacher is the best teacher in the world. And others will. My husband was trained by tutor. And so he broke my training down. He broke my technique down and put me back together again. And I found that I was a better dancer because now I understood a different way of things. And when I taught all of the years, especially children, when I had my ballet school, I used both the Russian and the Italian training. And I was a better teacher. There's no doubt about it. So a conception, if it's not changed in your mind, you don't change it.
Joe spent how much time with you per session?
My sessions were anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, twice a week.
With him?
With him.
That's a different story than I was told, that he didn't do one-on-one.
World changes completely. And as I said, I moved to Baltimore in 55, but all those years between 55 and the time he died, what was it, 66?
67, I think.
67, right. I would still go up and it would still, the same thing, never changed. I had students every year. I would take students twice a year to New York, and ones that I knew that Joe needed to get his hands on, I would introduce them. Maybe 12, 15 students I would send to Joe through the years. And it was the same thing with them, the one-to-one. And Clara was there, and he had at one time, I can't remember a gentleman's name, who was an assistant there in the studio. So from time to time, I would see someone else that was assisting.
Was that Bob Seed?
I'm sorry?
Bob Seed, maybe?
No, that name is not familiar at all. No. So, but it was never a class, never a group thing at all. To my knowledge, in my experience, it was always he may have 3 other people there, but it was always a one-to-one working on.
So fortunate you had this experience, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's talk about this intriguing, fascinating piece of apparatus or accessory prop. I don't know how you would describe it, but he called it the headdress. And
yes.
You're so well known in the YouTube world because I'm not sure who was videotaping you or filming you.
Joe Pilates videotaped it.
Okay, so he was filming you. Did he ask you to put this headdress on, or did you just take it upon yourself?
It was laying on the floor, and I may have seen someone with it on. I don't recall if I did or not, but I may have. But I was waiting my turn. Maybe I was a little earlier for Joe to start with me. And I just picked it up and I started walking around.
Describe the headdress for our listeners.
It was like a crossbow that fit down onto the head. It had pipe coming out from this crossbow, and then the strings down with sand in each of the bag. And so then I thought, and I think I did it one time, and then another time again waiting. And then I thought,
did you know what it was for exactly?
To me, it just seemed a very similar thing. Like we used to put a book on our head and walk. That was my conception of it. So the second time I picked it up, I said, what if I do an arabesque? Oh, I wonder if I can do a penché. So working, with that and just doing, and then little bourrées and things like that. And not to my knowledge, but apparently Joe was watching me. And he said to me, we must film you so I can use you in my teaching. And I said, fine. And he himself, and it was 8mm. In fact, I just dug up the original packet and with the film inside of it. He sent me a copy with his, he wrote the address, maybe Clara did, but he did. Anyway, so I just winged it. I mean, it was filmed at his place, of course, after hours. It was just doing things. And I think maybe I had tried out a few little things like on the reformer, doing the split and things like that, and doing attitudes, well, you saw, and bourrées. And he said, no one has ever been able to do what you can do with this. Well, I could do it because he retrained my body so that I could do it. then I said, well, I want to have Clara come into the last film, frame. And she did. And I'm so sorry. I did not think about I didn't know whether Clara was capable of filming. I would have had her take the camera and Joe come in. But I didn't even think about that. I really, truly didn't.
Yeah.
So, and, I had it for years and years. When VCRs first came out, I had copies made on VCR and then DVDs. So I have the copies on DVDs too. But I have the original right here.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yes.
And it's digitized now online.
Yes. Right.
Did you feel different after you took the headdress off?
Well, I was conscious of the balance, yes, very definitely. And when I first put it on, and particularly doing, forays, because I couldn't take it fast because the sandbags could have, thrown me off and things like that, the penché. And then, of course, when I was on the reformer itself, then, you're very conscious of pulling your rib carriage together and making certain that those hips are right under your shoulders and everything, because that's your balance. That is your form of balance and the correct form. So it was, it was fun, but it was also concentrating on what I was doing too, not in fear of it at all, but just concentrating and making, more aware of your body. But I'm very happy to have had it done, have it on YouTube.
And where is that headdress today? Does it still exist?
I have no idea. I think I saw something on YouTube from, Sean has been, I think Sean bought Joe's original property, and he's been finding various different implements in different stages. And if I'm not mistaken, on YouTube about a year and a half ago, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, there was 4 or 5 or 6 people that had reformers, but they were kibitzing around with.
You mean the headdress, not the reformers? The headdress.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, the headpiece, and they were kind of laughing and kibitzing around with it. I don't think they fully understood why it was developed, but I think it is on YouTube. Either that or PBS did an anniversary of Pilates, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago, and I just playing with the zapper, I found it. And I think there was an anniversary.
I think it's the 100-year anniversary of maybe World War I, and he was included in that. Maybe
so. Yeah.
I just had an idea. And maybe you've thought about this, and maybe you've done it. Would you consider teaching a workshop on this headdress? Not just for ballet dancers, but for everyone who needs to understand your body in space in terms of balancing.
Of course. Yes. And I would, love to, but yes, I don't have it. I don't have the headpiece. but it basically, it truly, I don't think he used it that often. I never saw it. I may have seen one person with it on that gave me the idea to, pick it up myself. But I never saw Joe physically put it on anyone or work with them. He may have, but not at the time I was at his studio. But yes, yes, of course, I'd love to.
Okay, I think we put it out into the universe. You can make it happen now.
Right.
Besides the headdress, eventually, after the reformer, like you're saying, he would bring you to the mat. Did he expect you to practice his 34 exercises at home?
This discussion was never there. the fact that I was a dancer and took classes every day, then it really wasn't prevalent or discussed. Now, when I wanted to teach Pilates, I opened up a studio in Baltimore in 1960. And I think probably a year after that, I started teaching adults classes. And I said to Joe, I want to teach your method. And he said, fine. And by that time, I was well qualified from all the years with him. And he says, I'll certify you. And then he pulled out, he always had charts of mat work. I mean, the book is Return to Life. That's exactly what it is. And so he pulled out charts and he wrote down for me, which, how many reps on this and that. So he made notations on these charts for me to reflect back to, and I still have them. So in teaching, but then again, in my teaching too, as I said earlier, it was a combination of work from ballet and work from Joe both. And the two of them just are so coincided. And that was and I think ballet teachers who've studied with Joe give better Pilates mat classes, to be truthful about it. But, and you think of, for instance, Thursday, well, it was colder than heck here. And the place I teach, it's an all screened in room. So we're outside and it's screened and with a roof and what have you. The wind was blowing. So I had to completely revamp because because the floor is cement and of course with the mats. And so, the first time I had them down on the floor, it wasn't worth it. And so, but the idea that, you are flexible, that you can revamp. And so I wound up,
get the blood pumping, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so there were some fold up chairs there. We used those for bars and various different things, but it was all related. I mean, even standing up doing other things, it's related to my knowledge and body placement. Keep your hips under your shoulders over your hips, your belly button into your spine, pull your rib carriage in, and the head. That's the most important thing that I scream at people about is looking down all the time and working it up. And only a couple of people in the class have ever had ballet when they were young. So, but it's all it works.
Do you work in turnout and parallel?
Turnouts for adults are not important because and we don't do completely parallel, but there's certain things that you have to, you should have. I mean, we do side things and what have you, and then you do. But a full turnout, no, it's not important at all. In the adult ballet classes, it's the same thing, two things, the turnout and grand pliés. And it's very interesting now that I've been watching a lot of, on YouTube, ballet classes from the Bolshoi, from Royal Ballet and what have you. And pliés are not done like we used to do.
Oh.
And they very, very little grand pliés, very little grand pliés. And it's very interesting. And I think orthopedics, ballet dancers, and teachers have all, kind of realized that the knees will last longer. Now, you have to do some grand pliés, of course. It's quite different. So if you watch some of these classes, it's very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very. And even, and I will, with adult ballet, I'm teaching mat classes now, but not ballet classes. I don't have the facility for the ballet classes for the adults. Even those who had ballet training, I said, you don't do as many, just do dibbies. That's all you really need to do. So it depends on who you're teaching, who your audience is, that, you regulate the steps and what you need there. But always the body placement is Joe's completely.
I love it. Going back to Joe for a moment, when you say that he certified you, can you speak more about that?
just in the fact that he gave me permission to teach his method. And he knew that of my work, he knew that I was probably, well, in 16 years, we're not quite 16 by the time I started my studio, but, I also had observed the way he taught and understood the way he taught and worked at times with him for a little bit as a assistant teacher so that I could, understand, and continued. I mean, from the time that I said I wanted to teach his method, and when I would go back to New York and, actually observe, question, and things like that. So he felt confident that I was capable.
It's not like he gave you a piece of paper that said you are hereby now certified to teach Contrology.
It was written down. Yes, it was. I no longer have it because moving and everything else, I'm going to have, what I do have. I also have the beginning Pilates Foundation that was started years ago, information from that. I think it's wonderful that we're getting, did you see on Gallagher's information today, the picture of Joe and Isadora Duncan, was it Isadora Duncan? No, not Isadora Duncan, the dancer. Have you seen that today?
Not Martha Graham.
No. Ted Shawn and, no, not Martha Graham.
Ted Shawn.
It was Isadora. No, Isadora Duncan was before Joe, really. Anyway, I can't remember. But it's a beautiful picture. Joe is in full dress, not just his shorts.
Trunks.
Yeah. But no, Joe, getting back to what you were saying, each piece of his equipment was, he worked a lot with me on the barrel, a lot. And there were a couple of things on the reformer that scared the heck out of me. And so he was always right there.
Which ones?
Well, it's where you're sitting on the bar across, or you start sitting on the bar.
Tendon stretch.
And then, and you push your heels out.
Yes,
tendon stretch. Your body goes. And I was always terrified
falling
that
forward.
I would fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the guillotine was my favorite of all exercise equipment that he had. I love that guillotine. I wish I had one. And the reformer chair. I have a reformer. The Wanda chair. The Wanda chair. I have one here, but I don't use it often at all. Very interesting.
Did he refer to it as the Wanda chair?
I think so. Yeah, his original. The one I have, it's not quite as high. And so I like the idea of the chair with you could get your legs either using the heel or the ball of the foot and really work it out. Same thing with the guillotine, that, I just love that pushing straight up on that. The Cadillac was fun. That was fun. And it's like being on a monkey bar when you're a kid.
Yes. And
so that was a lot of fun. And the
pedipole? Did you work on the pedipole?
No. I didn't. There was one, maybe that where you're just working the arms and what have you. And your back is against the pole.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And no, because I never had much strength in my arms. Probably if I worked on that more often, I would have strength in my arms. And, but I really never had in my hands, never really, because, the dancer, this is what we do. We move from back here, but actually physical strength.
What about the armchair? Did you ever sit down on the armchair?
Mm-hmm.
Did that help you with strengthen your arms?
Well, I wasn't really conscious of stretching my arms so much, more so not having the strength in the hands and the arms to lift things in a normal everyday type of life. Because, we do port-a-bras What else do we need to do?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's when now you have to lift up the your players and your speakers and things like that, then you realize you don't have that much strength in your arms. I have more strength today because I work my reformer all the time now. But so you adjusting.
Now, which company do you have your reformer from?
Good question.
Is it Joe's? So are we talking Gratz, or do you have more of a modern?
I have more of a contemporary. I tell you, Stott's the best one I've ever seen in my life. It's the most beautifully engineered one I have ever seen, ever. And I mean, I was astounded. I was doing a individual, and she called me in, and she had the equipment. I thought, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen as far as the equipment goes. I mean, really. So I can run in the other room and tell you the name of it. Not that one, but the one I have, if you want.
Yeah, I would love to. But let me ask you: when you first tried the Stott reformer, did it feel the same as the reformers at Joe's studio?
No, nothing is, because these are done on bungee cords. And the first reformer I had was called the mini reformer. And that bed was just off the floor, just a few inches. And the bed was wider, which I liked very, very much. And, but it was still the bungee cords. And I got that one back in the 80s. And then finally, because of harder to get up and down off the floor, and also the bungee cords were wearing out, and then I got this other one that is, on legs about yay high, which is, let me run and get the name of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I never remember names. It's Aero Pilates.
Oh, wow. That's very contemporary.
Yes. Yeah. And as I said, nothing is like the springs. Now I have the straps and the springs that you hang up on the wall that I think Joe gave me those. Yeah, he did, actually. And, or I bought them from him. Yes, and they have the tight springs on them. And I have ordered, now the Aero has I think 3 or 4 different tightnesses of the bungee cords. And I've ordered a couple of those to replace some of mine. But it gives me, a good workout. I have clients that'll come and take classes as well.
Joe invented something that you put over a door?
You actually hang it. They're straps with very tight the springs on them, and it's just working your legs. And actually, you can work your arms as well with that. And yes. So they're two straps, 2 springs, and you hook up on a door frame or a wall or something like that. So, yeah.
His mind was constantly in play.
Definitely. And, and if you read Steele's book, and I'm sure you did,
yes,
that, he took from the animals of the world. And it's absolutely true. I mean, at one time I had a cat who I got in New York, and she had to marry my husband as well. And I mean, it was just fascinating watching her stretching and what have you. And I can see, and I didn't know that Joe was so fascinated with animals when my relationship with Joe was going in, taking a class, saying goodbye, and always having something else I had to do afterwards or before. And so I didn't have really a personal relationship. But according to Steele, no one had a personal relationship with him, except maybe the cats in the zoo.
Right. Yeah. A couple more questions. There's a lot of discussion about what a Pilates elder is. Do you consider yourself an elder or a first-generation Pilates instructor? And I ask that because with your experience, do you think that there is a difference, and should we even care?
This was interesting. And I have gone and put on classes throughout the country and what have you, somewhat. And then, of course, COVID ended all of that. But people would ask me, wasn't Clara a better teacher? And my answer is always, who cares? It's the legacy and what he gave us. I think I probably was one of the first generation teachers in 1960. I don't think there were many of us. If there were, we didn't really know one another. We didn't until the Pilates Foundation started, and then that started bringing teachers together. You could say I'm an elder, but yet he started in 1927 in this country, and I'm not that old quite. I don't care. What I do care is that he gave me a knowledge that has kept me going through my dance world, made me a far better dancer. And I remember one time living in Baltimore, but I was going up to New York. And there was an adagio class that I wanted to take. And I hadn't had an adagio class in a few years. And I don't know whether you remember the dancer Nina Novak or not. She was with Ballet Theater and Ballet Russe originally, and then I think Ballet Theater, yes. And anyway, and she had this Argentine or somebody, South American male dancer that they were touring all over the world doing concert work. Well, he loved me because, and yeah, I never saw him before. He never saw me before. But because my back was so strong, he could throw me and then catch me. And again, Joe, my back was as strong as it could be. And I remember my first adagio class in ballet theater school. And it was the same thing. Because again, Joe gave me the foundation. And that's exactly what it was. And I don't go for labels. Doesn't make any difference to me. With everything, it's what you receive and what you're willing to do with it. And the same thing with my students. I feel that I was given a knowledge. It is my literally duty and love to pass it on. And I will do that until the day I die. And the students keep saying, I'll say, you're going to hear my words. And they say, oh, we already do.
Yes.
So I think that Joe would be, and I really haven't thought about that until this minute, what I'm going to say now. I think he would be very pleased that he said, yes, you can take my work and carry it on. And I really never thought about that until right now. But I think that he would be very pleased because I certainly benefited. And why not pass it on? I mean, that's what we should do.
Absolutely. Anna, in closing, do you have any advice for other teachers that do feel the love and do feel the duty to pass this work on? Do you have any advice as to how to keep going and keeping those ideas and his philosophy? Like you're 87 young, right? And you are going strong.
Yes. You can get burned out of any job in the world that you love and adore. I got burned out of teaching children. And I did leave the dance world teaching for about 10 years. And only when I moved to Florida, did I start teaching again. And 1 year children and then adults from then on. I haven't felt in the past 22 years that I've been teaching these last 22 years, burned out at all. And I think that it goes back to what we discussed before at the very beginning when you introduced my going to Joe. He's going to change my life. And I think it is a change that is only beneficial. And accepting that. And even when I sit down or when I stand up or whatever, as far as other teachers go, I think that they have to understand why they're doing something and want to be involved in passing it all on and making corrections. You know, I taught in a gym for 20 years here. And most of it, you know, they come in and they jump around and they dance and what have you, and a lot younger than I am, but they don't understand the method. They don't explain. It's basically they're doing it. And I used to tell when the teachers would teach 10 and 15 classes a week, that's many, many too many. I wish I had taken my own advice because I wound up having a little bit of body problems because number one, your floor. You have to have a good floor. And number two is that back-to-back classes. And it will destroy you. As Joe said, you can't come to me every day. The body needs a rest. And the mental attitude needs a rest too. So I think that if you understand thoroughly and continue to learn, I'm so happy that his books are being reproduced. I had never seen his very first book. And somebody gave me that book and his Return to Life, the reproductions of them, for Christmas this year. Of course, I have his Return to Life. He signed it for me and everything. But I think that if they just think about it, Joe said you don't need to go any place to you can do it at home. That's, you know, the beginning of his Return to Life book. Just knowing why you're doing it. And I just feel so enthralled. I'm happier when I'm teaching. People say you look different. And it's because that I enjoy it so much. When I didn't enjoy it, that's when I stopped. And that was the best thing. And I pursued other careers for 10 years. And coming back to it, I've loved every second of it, really.
So teachers might want to look at their schedule and schedule in rest.
Yes. It's the same thing, Darian, that I say to people, oh, I don't have time. And, you know, yes, you do. When you're making your calendar, now, I don't have a lot of realtors that come to me. I say, you make your calendar and you put in that time for class. You write it down on your or on your cell phone in your scheduling thing. You put it down. And I have the mayor of Flagler Beach, which is our adjacent little town here. And she loves ballet. She said, oh, I don't. I said, no, Linda, you put it on your calendar every month. And she said, you know, you're right, because you need to make that time for yourself. You can think of 1,000 reasons why you can't do it, but you make that, and you're right. I think that's a great idea that you said that teachers need to schedule in time and time to get away from the place that if there's their own studio. And I mean, there are a lot of, especially gym teachers that teach in gym, they travel from place to place to place to place. But they do. I think that's one of the best things that they can do is to get away from it a little bit. I think they're finding that out of other corporations that, you know, taking a little 15, 20-minute nap is very beneficial.
Yes. I think the pandemic, excuse me, I think the pandemic has resurrected this idea of self-care. And that's part of it, is taking care of ourselves because we're always taking care of others.
Right. This is true. And in some cases it was turned you into too lax. But in other cases, it gave you time to think about other things too. So I think you're right about that. And you should all think about your exercise and keep it going.
Yes. Yes.
And so, in fact, my cardiologist, I was talking to him, I was there the other day, general checkup. And he said, well, how about you teaching? He says, every Friday we have a session, we close the office and we have everybody, he says, coming in and teaching a class to the staff. I said, I'd love to.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And because there's so much more emphasis on breathing and sitting tall and what have you. And if more people learn this and think about this, I taught silver sneakers, adult, and I taught it 5 years at assisted living places and things like that. And, it's just the idea. And sometimes if you revamp the things that I'd say, why do you want to push down on your liver and your kidneys? Come on, stretch up so that they can breathe. Of course, this is what the medical profession is starting to learn about too. Wonderful. We're going to keep on going.
Yes. And Joe is in the medical establishment now.
Yes.
Finally.
Right. Finally. Yes. He is world known.
Yes.
And this is wonderful. It really is. It's what he wanted. And, there's time and a place, and he was so far before his time. And and he was so concerned about somebody stealing his method that he wouldn't expand it. He could have had, 100 teachers. But then that wasn't at the time for him either. So all we can do is take the good of it.
Yes.
And do it.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Well said. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experience with Joe. It's really needed.
Thank you. And I'll see you soon, I hope.
Yes. Please come back. We could talk more.
Yes, definitely.
All Things Pilates is produced, edited, and hosted by me, Darian Gold. Mastered audio mix by Fabian Romero. Theme music, Soul Blue Piano Shuffle by Boom Zoom. And a bit of news I want to share with you. This past week, I received an email from the App Store, and it informed me that unless I update my 2 apps, the store will be removing them in 30 days. I still remember back in 2010 when the iTunes store accepted my first app, Studio Darian Pilates. I was beyond thrilled, and at the time there were only a few Pilates apps in the store, and none of them, except mine, featured the classical repertoire. The email also assured me that if you already have the apps on your devices, no need to worry. They will continue to work. If you do have any family or friends you think might appreciate one or both of my apps, please encourage them to download the apps in the next 30 days. Luckily, though, Google Play has yet to send me a similar love letter. I also wanted to take this opportunity to share some of my thoughts about our industry. I keep hearing whispers about a few people who have caused a lot of strife in the Pilates community. Remember, Joe gave us this unique gift to help humanity. It's not about who is the flavor of the month. Respect is a word I'd love for all of us to laser in on and stop the animosity, jealousy, and unprofessionalism. From my perspective, living with long COVID for just about 16 months now has caused me to reevaluate everything in my life, including my own contribution to this community. Whether you like it or not, COVID-19 has altered all of our lives, and for many, theirs have been completely turned upside down. And so I will leave you with this. Look inside and make sure you get right with yourself, because you are all you have. As always, I remain in awe of Joe's work, and I look forward to being with you again in a couple of weeks for another episode of All Things Pilates.